everypony, and welcome back to My Little Pony What Works. During this long hiatus without ponies, not counting Equestria Girls, I decided to look back at the previous season starting with Season 1. And upon further glances, Season 1 has held up surprisingly well. Mostly. But we're not here to talk about that particular episode. Yet. Instead, we'll look at my favorite episodes from the previous season. This is my top 10 favorite episodes of Season 1. Number 10. Fall Weather Friends. This episode is truly entertaining and Applejack's best episode. Applejack and Rainbow Dash decide to have a friendly competition to see who the better athlete is. But when the competition gets heated, in particular when Rainbow uses her wings to her advantage, both Applejack and Rainbow Dash lose sight of what's important in the competition between friends. Especially when the final event is the coveted running of the leaves. Fall Weather Friends represents a good episode from Amy Keating Rogers. You can feel that this episode is light on its feet and playful all along the way to the moral. This is also helped by the colorful commentary by Pinkie Pie and Spike playing off of one another. Another thing to notice is the voice acting from Ashley Ball is superb. Considering how she voices both Applejack and Rainbow Dash in the show, seeing her basically talk to herself is funny and admiring in retrospect. I expect a lot of Tylenol was available during that recording session. This episode also shows how to teach the moral through mediation while still having the characters learn the lesson. Twilight, acting as a moderator throughout the episode, helped remind the two athletes it's always important to remember that the friendship is more important than the competition. Fall Weather Friends. Good, somewhat clean fun. Number 9. Sonic Rainboom. This episode is awesome. For a short while, Rainbow Dash was my favorite pony. Up until a certain episode featuring the most hypocritical message ever, but that's beside the point. The point here, however, is we didn't really get any direct character growth for Rainbow Dash up until this episode. Sure, we saw bits and pieces here and there in other episodes, including one that's coming up later on the list, but correct me if I'm wrong here, we had nothing for character growth outside of she's a great flyer, she wants to meet the Wonderbolts, and she's the element of loyalty. In Sonic Rainboom, we see the first direct development for Dash by showing the audience she had confidence issues. Of course, we see her overcome those issues with the most physically impossible but still aesthetically awesome maneuver, the trademark Sonic Rainboom. The second thing I should mention is Rarity's portrayal in this episode. Here we see Rarity truly wants to help Dash boost her confidence by showing moral support. Element of generosity, right? But when given butterfly wings, she's blinded by her own hubris and shows one of the more overlooked consequences of having the element of generosity, vanity. This moment of development proves the characters have flaws that make them well-rounded outside of their elements, making them three-dimensional. I should also mention Fluttershy's reaction had me laughing the entire time. Her deadpan cheers had me chuckling after rewatching this episode once again. Sonic Rainboom, pure, technicolored awesomeness. Number 8. The Cutie Mark Chronicles. The origin story of the main six. In this episode, the Cutie Mark Crusaders are doing their usual business trying to get their Cutie Marks doing dangerous stunts. After Zipline turned out to be a bust, they decide to ask Rainbow Dash how she got her Cutie Mark. Because she's awesome, I guess. Along the way, however, they meet the rest of the main six and learn their stories of how they earn their Cutie Marks. Not only do we understand the connection between the main six pre-pilot episodes, but we look a little deeper into their characters on a personal level. Applejack wanted to find a different lifestyle out of the farm life. Fluttershy was basically a misfit amongst the Pegasi. Rarity had confidence issues with her work and passion. Twilight was inspired by Celestia to practice magic. Pinkie Pie wanted to bring a little fun into the dull work life, and Rainbow Dash found her love of speed. This episode also demonstrates the best way to pull off an origin story without it feeling out of place. Like the Teen Titans episode, Go, the Cutie Mark Chronicles feels natural when introducing the characters' backstories, which is why it ends up at the number 8 spot. And it affirmed Rainbow Dash as best pony then. Number 7. Griffin the Brush Off. Talk about a highly underrated episode. Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash start spending time with each other pulling harmless pranks around Ponyville. However, when Rainbow's childhood friend Gilda, a Griffin, comes to town, she tries everything in her power to keep Dash and Pinkie away from each other. This episode has several things I love about the show and its concepts. First and foremost, the antagonist Gilda is an awesome character concept just on her own. You know that old friend from high school you used to hang out with but you moved on to meet new friends while they're stuck reminiscing about the good old days? That's Gilda in a nutshell. Gilda is a product of the 1990s as demonstrated with her slacker dialogue and really hasn't moved on since then. In addition, we get a look at her character from Rainbow Dash's perspective. That mention of the Junior Speedster flight camp at the end of the first act demonstrates she at least has a two-dimensional personality. Introducing that plot point just early enough for the viewer to grasp makes Gilda a much more interesting character than having a plot point introduced in the last 5 minutes for a character in another particular episode, but I already expressed my disdain for that a while ago. Put on the fact that Gilda's a Lion Eagle crossbreed and voiced by Revy from Black Lagoon, you get one awesome character. The second concept I love about this episode is Pinkie Pie and her motivations for befriending others. As demonstrated, she wants to have fun and make others feel good, but she has her limits when the duo attempted pranking Fluttershy. When it comes to a bully, however, her methods are probably the best idea to befriend one. Showing them kindness and hospitality might actually make the bully see everyone in a kinder and different light, but Gilda rejected the words of love and tolerance and left in a huff. Kinda makes you wonder what would happen if befriending Gilda did work out in the end. Maybe it would have ended up like Keep Calm and Flutter On, we don't know. But in any case, just remember to remain cool and have good behavior, and you can determine who your true friends are. Griffin the Brush Off. Suck it, Trixie fanboys! Number 6. Green isn't your color. This episode takes a stereotypical subject and gives it a new and refreshing take. When Rarity asks Fluttershy to be her model for photo finish, which is what would happen if Anna Ventura were to experience Rule 85, Fluttershy is getting all the attention as a model over Rarity's dresses. This brings up a dilemma for both Rarity and Fluttershy. Rarity actually has envy for Fluttershy's success as a model, but doesn't want to hurt Fluttershy's feelings and make her feel bad in the spotlight. Meanwhile, Fluttershy hates being in the spotlight with all the media attention, but doesn't want to disappoint Rarity after saying yes to the modeling job. The moral of the story, of course, is to come right out and say what's on your mind and work it out yourselves. When I saw this formulaic story executed the way it was portrayed here, I was celebrating the series for taking a story topic that was done to death in children's media and gave it a fresh spin on the subject. This is why you can feel my anger when Alice Well That Ends Well came to my viewing screen 4 episodes later. With some funny antics from Twilight and Pinkie Pie and Rarity and Fluttershy working out their problems on their own, Green Isn't Your Color proved to be a breath of fresh air for children's cartoons in general. Number 5. A Dog and Pony Show. This episode firmly put Rarity into the top 3 ponies of the main 6. When Rarity is asked to make a new dress line for Sapphire Shores, she enlists Spike to help dig for gems. But before Spike X Rarity could develop any further, Rarity is kidnapped by Diamond Dogs to find and dig for gems for the creatures. It's up to Spike and the rest of the main 6 to save Rarity, or so they realize. The thing I like the most about this episode is Rarity's character development, which goes along with the moral. Just because someone is ladylike doesn't make her weak. In fact, by using her wits, a seemingly defenseless pony can be the one who outsmarts and outshines them all. This is probably my favorite aspect of Rarity, her wits. While Pinkie Pie may produce the best humor, Rarity has the best comedic timing. A lot of people latched onto the Rarity whining bit, but the one sketch that demonstrates Rarity's timing as well as Tabitha St. Germain's acting ability was Rarity's crying. The way Rarity acts overdramatically and breaks out crying works exceptionally well for comedy. It's no wonder she's the element of comedic timing and camaraderie supernatural. And as Katie Cook said, Rarity has the most potential for comedic storytelling. A Dog and Pony Show, making Rarity that much more awesome. Number 4, Suited for Success. I really can't say anything more than what Brony Curie said during his video, primarily because he went into more depth than I ever could. For a more detailed look of why Suited for Success kicks flank, just click the link on the left-hand side of the screen, assuming you have annotations on. But I can't agree more than when he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Suited for Success is arguably the best example of modern Western animation in a long time. Not to mention a good moral about not looking a gift horse in the mouth, Crazy Cat Lady Rarity, and of course, art of the dress. Never has singing about dressmaking been so manly. And you can quote me on that. Number 3, Dragon Shy. This is the episode that made me a brony. A dragon snoring is causing smoke buildup over Ponyville, so it's up to the main 6, by Celestia's orders, to convince the dragon to sleep elsewhere by any means necessary. Fluttershy, on the other hoof, is more reluctant because she actually has a fear of adult dragons. Sometimes when watching this episode, it feels like a Dungeons & Dragons adventure with Celestia as the Game Master. Every obstacle on the way could be interpreted as encounters, and the character interactions after said encounters feel just like the characters are role-playing. Hell, the methods for trying to convince the dragon to move are much like the attributes in D&D. Twilight tries diplomacy, but fails. Rarity attempts bluff, the dragon calls it. Pinkie Pie tries... I don't think there's an attribute for what Pinkie Pie does, and that was nowhere close to working. Rainbow tries attacking the dragon, and the dragon attacks back. But when Fluttershy uses Intimidate, she scores a critical hit. Overall, I was impressed at how serious the story took itself without talking down to its target audience. It also started the trend of making Megan McCarthy my favorite writer of the series. It's a shame how that caliber of writing was absent on our last 2 stories. But yeah, Dragon Shy helped me find the spark to become a brony. Number 2, Winter Wrap-Up. This episode cemented my love of the show. And because I feel like repeating myself from my guide to My Little Pony from last year, I'll read word for word what I said in that video to show why Winter Wrap-Up is one of my favorite episodes, paraphrasing along the way. It's the day before the first day of spring in Ponyville, and every pony in the town works together to help clean up the snow, ice, and everything winter-related without the use of magic. While every pony has a task, Twilight struggles to fit in and find a job to do before spring arrives the next day. Let's count the ways once again why this episode is so good. First and foremost, the episode incorporates how well the community functions. The weather team needs to melt the snow, but they require the go-ahead from the animal team once the hibernating animals are awake to avoid flooding. Once the snow and ice melts, it gives water to the agriculture team to allow planting food. It shows how much of a well-oiled machine the town really is, as well as showing how to do a world-building episode right. Second, the writing. It has me laughing every time, in particular when Spike gets to talk. Other times, the jokes just write themselves, as with Twilight waking up snakes, running away from bats, and then having a beehive fall on her head. I don't even need to add anything because you probably added it yourself. Finally, there's a song. You'll be singing Winter Wrap-Up for days at a time, and by a couple of watch-throughs, you'll know it by heart. Winter Wrap-Up, because tomorrow, spring is here. Though judging by this summer's heat, we'll be begging for winter to come early depending on what part of the world you're in. So here we are, my favorite episode of Season 1. This is the episode that made My Little Pony Friendship is Magic my favorite show for the time being. And my favorite episode of Season 1 is Party of One. This episode delves into the psyche of future Best Pony and shows the most envelope-pushing moment of Season 1, Pinkamena Diane Pie. When Pinkie Pie scheduled an after-birthday party for her pet alligator, all of her friends had to decline because of some made-up excuse. When Pinkie Pie realizes they were all excuses, she comes to the conclusion that her friends don't like her parties and don't want to be friends with her anymore. This is interesting because Pinkie Pie is always the one to make new friends. As we see in later episodes, she likes making other ponies feel good, which in turn makes her feel good. But when no one is around to feel good with her, she enters a depression and becomes pessimistic. Considering her element is laughter, or a better interpretation, optimism, seeing Pinkie Pie all downtrodden and melancholic shows a little more depth to future Best Pony. In fact, you can say this episode and Griffin the Brush-Off are the two episodes that define Pinkie Pie's character. She has her limits to how much fun one could have without hurting anyone, she wants to make every pony her friend regardless of how they act towards her, and she will sometimes see the glass half empty despite being the most optimistic of the group. As Twilight wrote in her letter to Celestia, always expect the best from your friends and never assume the worst. Rest assured that a good friend always has your best interest at heart. Or in other words,
always look on the light side of life.
Party of One, my favorite episode of Season 1. That was my top 10 favorite episodes of Season 1. I hope you enjoyed the list, and next time I'll... What the hell? Whoa. That rift is huge. I wonder where it leads. Wow. Did my fourth wall-breaking ability really do this? This is awesome! Holy cow, I can visit any channel I want for a crossover. And you know what? I think I'll pick this one.